So this is part two of the video that we were doing last week. So we're joined again by Michael here. Thanks for joining me, Michael.
Always welcome.
And yeah, we're going to talk about today essentially the next half of the 6 main things that every top archer does. So today we're going to talk about a strong anchor. And I know we've got some really important things to talk about there, some kind of warnings as well with it. We're going to talk about the expansion, and we're going to talk about everyone's favorite topic, which is the release. So we're going to start with the strong anchor point. And to kind of begin with this, I want to share a video on the screen so that people can kind of get a representation of this, essentially. So I'll put the video up here, and apologies, it's a little bit pixelated, but it's just how it is because it was recorded in 2004. And we're just going to go through the video. We're going to go into a closer in shot, and I just want people to watch how strongly Park Sung-hyun there is pulling the string. You can't quite see it on this frame, but on the one before again, just watch how strongly coming into the chin, pulling there, and then obviously the snappy release, which we'll talk about later. I think from these back shots, you can't really see apart from this one here. And you can see again here, coming into the face with the string, really pulling hard there, and then snappy release. So this is also, I mentioned a while ago, there's a video on the Korean Archery Association YouTube channel where they talk about, they've gone through the shot essentially, and they've done one for the stance, one for the posture, one for the anchor, and there's English subtitles for anyone that's not seen it already, but they talk about this anchor position and how important it is to get basically something solid to be pulling against. So my kind of brief explanation of this to anyone watching is, I always go for this analogy of a rope. If you've got a rope and you're trying to pull that rope perfectly taut so that it's not hanging down, it's not loose or anything, it's just the perfect amount of pull so that when someone comes in and cuts it, you're not going to collapse like this and you're just going to continue going this way. It's going to be really hard to keep that perfect amount of tension, and you're going to just hold it here, and maybe you'll have to go a little bit forwards and then a little bit back and then a little bit forwards. So you're just teetering. The analogy for that is essentially you're just basically just touching the string on the face and then just coming off, just having it really light, which I know is a really common thing. A lot of beginners courses, and I was taught this at the start as well, is just lightly touch it on your face. You don't want to go too hard because then, like there's maybe some issues with that, which there are, which I think we're going to talk about in a minute. But going back to that, going back to that rope analogy, if you then have that rope and you pull that rope hard so that you're pulling essentially more than you need to, and you're pulling hard against it, and someone comes along and cuts that rope, then you're going to do this, which is obviously kind of closer to what we want and what we're going to talk about with the snappy release. So that's the kind of opening that I wanted to give people. Really important to get that solid on the face. But let's now talk about the warnings for this, because I think this is where you've seen a lot of your athletes kind of struggle with it and finding that balance, right?
Yeah, because everything you said there is true. And I think the problem, as in with so many bits with our sport, is their interpretation. Because with all of these things, we're not putting numbers on there. We're not putting what your interpretation of pulling really hard is different to someone else's. And I see so many people just overcook it and really pull into their face, smash their nose, and then they come back, and then when they release, the head jolts forward. And I know how they've got into that, because they've got into that by wanting to be solid, by wanting to be fixed on their face. And if you don't have the best back tension and the best alignment and you want to improve your release, pull is always gonna get you out of trouble more than anything else. So I see it overdone, and I see more people actually in the last 6 months. I can't think of having one athlete who was too soft. Everyone I'm seeing, obviously at this sort of particular level, is overcooking it, overpulling,
overdoing it.
Yeah. And then when they're building up the tension, and then
yeah.
So I spend a lot of time just trying to. There's a difference between having a solid fixed point and then having too much pressure, or maybe it's where the pressure comes from, because you can have a very solid anchor, but if there's pressure coming from your head against the string, then it releases. In the video there's a little bit of head movement. I see there's a few athletes nowadays with next to no movement, which is something I never never mastered. But so it's that balance point. It's about finding that. And as we always talk about, your self-perception of what normal is and what hard is and what soft is, your self-perception can get so distorted week after week, year after year. And then, I've just had a whole run of people where the face contact is 300% more, face pressure is 300 times more than it needs to be. But they've all gone with good intentions. They've all done it deliberately, and in some ways too hard is always better than too soft. I think too soft is just...
Yeah.
Don't be rude.
Yeah.
So it is better to, if you don't know where you are, you're always more inclined to get a slightly better performance with pulling hard into your face than you are from being too soft. So I can understand where we end, how they've ended up where they are, but I see it a lot nowadays.
And that point that you made about especially the head movement is really important, because that does happen a lot. And I guess that's the big caveat to this, is like if you're going to pull hard against your face with the string, you really have to make sure your spine is centered, you're not compromising your posture, you're not leaning back or leaning forwards, and you're not shifting your head, because if you're like pushing into the string, you're just going to absolutely jolt forwards or jolt backwards or whatever it is. So when you see someone doing this well, you'll always see them basically, they've got dead straight body, dead straight head position. And if you're going to work on this on your own, a way to see if you're doing it correctly is, am I moving my head after the release? Am I releasing snappy like this, or am I releasing like this? That's going to be the the kind of telltale of it. So I think that's really good. The kind of the warning there to people to make sure they're doing it the right way. If you're enjoying this video and want step-by-step guidance from me to improve your technique, check out my Online Archery Academy video courses. Go to onlinearcheryacademy.com, click Explore the Courses for a special discount. Now back to the video. The next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was the expansion as well. So I've got another video to kind of show for this, and the imperceptible expansion is really important. So if I bring the video up here, and we can watch Florian Unruh here, and then we've also got Miguel Alvarino Garcia. But I just wanted to show, so this is just the moment before release. Obviously, this is right as the clicker's clicking, but essentially, even when you're watching from this close angle, it's almost impossible to see that moment, or it should be impossible to see that moment of the expansion. If we go to a different angle, for example, let's see if we can find maybe this one of Miguel. He's coming into anchor. He's now expanding at this point, but he basically looks completely still and like a statue. So that last 2 seconds we just watched, I mean, yes, he's expanding. We'll watch it one more time, but literally from this view,
millimeter.
Yeah, it almost looks like he's doing nothing. And this is where some people get a little bit, going on to that last point we talked about, if they're trying to be imperceptible with their expansion, sometimes they do it too softly. They don't pull hard enough because they're worried about making the expansion like a big amount. And then this kind of leads them to have a soft release. So it's really important, like you were saying, this is where it all comes together, is like to have a good full draw position where you are in good alignment, you have got that good scapular movement, and you're using, the back muscles correctly. And then that way you can get right to the end of the clicker, and then you're pulling hard when you're already right to the end of the clicker. That's the key bit, so that the last squeeze is just almost like you just can't see it. That's where we want to get to. So there aren't many universal things about top archers techniques, but you won't find really a single person that comes to there on their clicker, starts expanding and just goes boom, and then shoots, because like you would just shoot everywhere. You literally just go everywhere on the target because of the range of what you're doing. I guess that would be the equivalent. That's the equivalent of punching, really, isn't it? Like that would be the recurve equivalent of like, I'm going to get the arrow to here and just go thunk. Whereas actually squeezing it through is what you should do, and it should be imperceptible, I guess, with compound as well. So that's kind of maybe a decent analogy for it.
They're both tying in, and I guess with a lot of the intermediate archers, that some of the difficulty they find is getting that precision in the draw, and that's part of the challenge. That's part of because yes, we'd all love it if we could get to full draw and just have another millimeter to go, and that's certainly something even when I was at the top of my game, I did struggle with that consistency of draw, and I know that when I'm under pressure, I'm just far more inclined that when I come into anchor, I'm going to have 4 millimeters to come through the clicker instead of 2. I'm just that little bit. And when you think of it, 2 millimeters is not a lot when it comes to the size
Crazy.
of me. But I knew that when I get under pressure, it's just something's gonna go slightly tight, something's gonna go slightly forward on the head, but for me, I just had to keep on keeping on and try and keep the speed. Even if I couldn't keep quite the precision in the draw, I had to just, focus on the speed. But
yeah. And if someone's wondering how to work on that, maybe getting a video camera onto your clicker plate so that you got the feedback, you're shooting, and you can see, okay, you can see the arrow obviously drawing through like this, and you can see the moment when it stops. And just after each shot, you look around at the video delay and check how close did I get to the end of the clicker. Oh, that one was like here, and then I had to have this big expansion. Then check again the next shot, and you work on getting it closer. Another thing I think you've talked about before, bow training, doing clicker expansions while you're doing the bow training. And you can even literally visually look down at the clicker on your own and see how close you're getting. Stuff like that is really going to improve your perception of where you are with your clicker and how you're expanding.
Building up that power as well, for sure.
Yeah. It's me again here. If you don't want to join the courses just yet, but you want help from me, sign up to my free weekly newsletter by putting your email address in at onlinearcheryacademy.com and clicking join now. Or click become a member to join my online membership community, where you can get access to loads of exclusive content, plus ask questions directly for me to answer in Q&A sessions. So check that out if you want to. And now back to the video. And then the last and the point that everyone wants us to talk about, I guess, is the snappy release. So I've got another video to show for this one as well, and one of my favourite snappy releases. So I'll bring that up here.
Is it me?
Unfortunately, it's not you, Mike.
No.
But sorry.
What a shame.
But we've got Steve Weiler here, who kind of broke onto the scene. I can't remember what year it was, but broke onto the scene. First World Cup, won gold, which is pretty incredible.
2014, maybe?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to think. I was commentating, so it wasn't before that. But it was,
okay. Yeah. But one of the things that I love so much about his technique is his release is so snappy. This is slow motion, and look how snappy it is. I mean, it's so awesome. Snappy. The fingers are so tight to his neck. I think there's a wider view, maybe on this one. I wanted to watch.
I'd have given anything to have a release like that. I could never get it that good.
Such a great release. And this is the one I wanted to. Hopefully they keep this angle. Yeah. So coming in here, just so snappy. I can't explain. To get it to look that fast on slow motion. It's wild.
It's absolutely world-class and exceptional, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Can you just play that one more time?
Yeah.
It's so good.
And I want to also, maybe we'll talk about this, but also the anchor that we were saying about, the strong anchor coming in and then really nailing that, keeping the fingers curled, coming around the body. And this, like I said, is the slow motion. When you watch Steve shoot, a World Cup match in real time or whatever, honestly, it's so snappy, it looks almost crazy.
Because if you're watching it at 30 frames a second, it's just going to go from one position to the next.
Yeah, so snappy. And I mean, previously to, before Steve, there was one of my favorite kind of releases to watch was Yunmi Jin from around 2004 as well. Super snappy release. Again, same quality video, so sorry it's a little bit pixelated, but you'll see here really pulling against the face, bam, snappy release. And then she's really coming in.
More head movement than most of her fellow countrymen.
Yeah. And then really pulling in, really snappy release.
Yeah.
Really, going for it on the release. But this is the type of thing, and this is what you were saying earlier, is you're going to basically make less mistakes because every release is going to be snappy. Maybe some are more snappy than others, but it's very rarely are you going to collapse. Whereas if you're going for like, if you're watching Brady shoot and you're like, okay, I'm just going to go for like, relaxed. This is where the problems start because some of them might be fine, some of them might be relaxed, and then, and actually, Brady does often do that. He does often actually have those releases, and he gets away with it because he's got such a good technique elsewhere, and he's in so much alignment with his elbow and all this kind of stuff that like he doesn't get terrible scores from it. Obviously, it doesn't happen often, but
no, he has weaknesses. I think he'd be the first to say that's the type of bad shot he can do. We all have shots that we're prone to. The one thing I will say is, even though with all of this pressure and all this tension, they're not squashing their nose. They're not dragging serious amounts of skin.
Yeah.
They're just hitting it and keeping the position, So it's that balance again, because some people, when they think about keeping pressure on there, they're then, and we don't like that. We don't want that. We don't want that. We want it to be firm. Get it on your chin, get it on the bone, try and keep the flesh away from from being dragged along by the string too much.
Good point, though. What you said with the chin, it is important. Don't go too far. Obviously, you want a bit of a side anchor to get your elbow around. But if you go too far, you're not actually going to be able to get that solid anchor, and you're just going to do what you were saying. You're going to
drag your skin. You're then, upon release, the string isn't going to be able to move into the body as it should. So you're not going to get the clearance around your bow. And as we've touched on before, the high-speed videos of this scenario shows you why you need to be able to let the string follow its path. And if you're too far down the side, you're in too hard, the string is not allowed to do its thing, and that affects how your arrow flies all the way down to the target.
Yeah. So those are the main things we wanted to talk about. So the anchor, expansion, and the release. I'd be interested, as obviously probably Mike would as well, but let us know in the comments if you've spotted or you think you've spotted anything that top archers all do consistently that maybe we've missed or other people kind of never talk about. I'd be interested to read the comments and see what you think with that. But thank you for watching.
Good.
Yeah, and we'll see you in the next video.